Olivia sat by the window of her high-rise apartment in downtown Boston, cradling a steaming cup of herbal tea. From that spot, she could see the entire harbor where white sailboats drifted lazily beneath the golden hues of dusk. Her life, at least at that moment, seemed to lack nothing. At 38, she was a seasoned marketing director, financially independent, the owner of a spacious apartment, and most of all, in a seemingly perfect relationship with Nathan, the man everyone assumed would soon become her husband. Nathan had entered Olivia's life like a spring breeze after a long, bitter winter. They met at a charity gala introduced by her close friend Allison. He was the kind of man who captured every gaze the moment he walked into a room. Polished, confident, and effortlessly attentive, Nathan swiftly pulled Olivia into his dazzling world of gallery openings, city lights, and candlelit dinners in the finest restaurants. Within weeks, they became the couple everyone talked about. People called them the perfect pair, a successful man and a graceful, intelligent woman. Olivia's life seemed to have entered its golden era, where everything was within reach. Weekend getaways to Martha's Vineyard parties aboard private yachts, and Nathan's surprise visits bearing massive bouquets. Each gesture made Olivia believe she had finally found the one. Her mother Eleanor was the happiest of all. "You deserve a love like this, Olivia," she'd often say, eyes gleaming with pride. Then on a summer evening aboard a yacht in Boston Harbor beneath the soft lights glinting off the water, Nathan knelt and presented a dazzling diamond ring. Olivia cried, nodding without hesitation. It felt like a dream, but the dream, unbeknownst to her, was slowly forming upon a fragile foundation. When Olivia announced her engagement to the family, her mother burst into happy tears. "My daughter is finally getting the happiness I've always wished for," Eleanor said, holding Olivia's hands tightly. But the only person who didn't show clear emotion that day was her younger sister, Sophie. Just 2 years younger, Sophie had always been a lingering shadow in Olivia's childhood. A bit prettier, a bit more outgoing, and always quietly competitive from grades to attention. Yet Olivia had never resented her. On the contrary, she'd always tried to preserve their bond by being patient, generous. That's why when it came time to choose a maid of honor, Olivia didn't hesitate. Sophie was her only choice. "We're adults now," she thought. "Surely we've outgrown those childish rivalries." Her mother supported the decision. "A wedding is a time to bring people together. Give Sophie another chance." The first time Olivia introduced Nathan to her parents, Sophie's interest was immediately apparent. Sparkling eyes, casual touches, compliments that felt just a little too much. Olivia brushed it off, assuming it was just Sophie's usual flair for performance in social settings. But later in the kitchen, her mother gently said, "Sweetheart, I couldn't help but notice Sophie seems rather taken with Nathan." Olivia laughed. "Mom, she's dating someone else. You're reading too much into it." Eleanor said nothing more, quietly packing leftover appetizers from dinner. Gradually, Sophie became a regular presence in wedding planning. She offered to attend cake tastings, helped with the invitation designs, and managed small logistics Olivia didn't have time for. Working long hours at her job, Olivia was grateful for the help, but deep down, a strange discomfort began to stir. The closeness between Sophie and Nathan had grown so naturally that Olivia no longer knew when the lines had started to blur. One afternoon, Olivia came home earlier than expected and overheard Nathan speaking on the phone, his voice low and tense. When she entered, he quickly ended the call, giving a strained smile and saying it was an investor from overseas. Olivia nodded, asking no further questions. But that night, sleep eluded her. The dream of a perfect marriage suddenly felt dimmer than ever. At first, the changes came quietly, so quiet that Olivia could dismiss them with gentle justifications. Nathan was busy, she understood. As a tech entrepreneur, his schedule was always packed, especially with an upcoming product launch. Friday night dinners were canceled, last-minute replies to her messages came slower, calls ended abruptly, all were explained by work. But after each instance, Olivia felt something slipping away. Nathan no longer listened the way he used to. When she shared work stress or creative ideas from her marketing campaigns, he would nod absent-mindedly, eyes glued to his phone. "Sorry, I've just been buried in work," he often said. Olivia would smile, but an emptiness had begun to take root. Worse than the silence were the subtle criticisms. Things Nathan once adored became points of complaint. "Your laugh. It's a bit too loud in public," he remarked after a party. The blue dress she wore on their first date, once praised as like something out of a painting, was now a bit dull. Her nightly habit of reading, once called endearing, was now too bright and disturbed his sleep. Olivia began to wonder, had she changed? Or was Nathan becoming someone else entirely? Meanwhile, Sophie became an increasingly constant presence, always with good reason, helping their mother with the wedding, suggesting invitation designs, trying on bridesmaid dresses. But Olivia began to notice that every time Sophie was around, Nathan seemed livelier, laughed more, his eyes brighter. Jokes she didn't quite get had them chuckling in sync. At times, Olivia felt like a guest in her own story. One evening while doing laundry, Olivia noticed an unfamiliar scent on Nathan's shirt collar, strong, floral, distinctly feminine, and not hers. When she asked, Nathan replied without hesitation, "Probably from Rebecca the investor. She hugged me goodbye after the meeting." Olivia gave a faint smile, but the heaviness in her chest lingered. Doubt had started to settle in, but she still wanted to believe. As time went on, Olivia felt increasingly like she was living in a play where she was no longer the lead. She tried everything to salvage their relationship, cooking Nathan's favorite meals, booking spa days, buying more alluring dresses. But the more she tried, the more distant he became. His hugs felt colder. His gaze often wandered. Then came the wedding cake, tasting a detail Nathan had once been excited about. That morning he called, "I can't make it. Emergency meeting. Sophie knows my preferences, let her go with you." The words struck Olivia like a slap. "Sophie knows your preferences better than your fiancé." She said nothing, agreeing like a robot. The next day, while cleaning Nathan's car for a dinner party, Olivia found something that couldn't be explained away, a silver earring with a tiny sapphire one she recognized immediately. It belonged to Sophie, a gift from their grandmother. She had worn those earrings at the engagement party. It was wedged between the passenger seat and the center console, a place it couldn't have ended up by accident. When confronted, Nathan didn't seem fazed. "She probably dropped it when I gave her a ride to meet the florist," he said casually, as if it were perfectly reasonable. Olivia asked, "You never mentioned giving her a ride." Nathan shrugged. "I must have forgotten. It wasn't important." When Olivia called Sophie, she gave the exact same explanation, almost word for word. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, her mind swirling. The puzzle pieces had been there all along. All she had to do was fit them together to reveal the painful picture, the truth. Olivia's health deteriorated rapidly. She lost weight. Her eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. Without telling anyone, she quietly sought a therapist. In each session, she peeled back the layers of strength she'd forced herself to wear just to face one thing: she was being betrayed. And worse still, the betrayer wasn't only the man she planned to marry, but her own sister. Olivia never imagined she'd be the woman who showed up unannounced with lunch for her fiancé. That simply wasn't her style. She valued mutual trust and personal space. But after so many sleepless nights, after the endless in-meetings texts, after the haunting earring, she decided to do something uncharacteristic. Check. In her hand was a brown paper bag from the sandwich shop near her office, Nathan's self-declared favorite spot for a quick bite. She entered the lobby of his office building. The security guard smiled and waved her in. "Mr. Nathan is in a meeting." The receptionist informed, her eyes flickering with something unreadable. "I can wait," Olivia replied calmly. But when the assistant stood nervously in front of the office door, clearly trying to block her, Olivia's patience ran out. She pushed the door open. What she saw made her breath catch. Nathan stood leaning against his desk, one hand resting on Sophie's waist. Sophie was tilted toward him, lips still glossy from their kiss. Their eyes were still locked when the door clicked shut behind Olivia. All three froze. Seconds passed, slow, jagged, heavy. Nathan was the first to speak. "Olivia, this isn't what it looks like." Sophie said nothing. She didn't deny it, didn't flinch. Instead, she lifted her chin, almost daring. "It happened. Now you know. So why pretend anymore?" Olivia didn't move. Her hand clenched the now cold lunch bag. "How long?" Her voice wasn't loud or shaky, it was eerily calm. Nathan glanced at Sophie, then back at Olivia. "We should talk about this privately." "How long?" she repeated. Each word cut like a blade. "Almost 6 months," Sophie said, eyes fixed on Olivia. "Since the engagement party." Something in Olivia cracked, not loudly, but like a quiet fracture in something sacred. The soundless shatter of trust misplaced. Olivia couldn't recall exactly how she left Nathan's office. Only that when she entered the elevator, her hand went limp, dropping the forgotten lunch bag, and her entire body felt numb. When she got home, she collapsed on the bathroom floor, not crying, not screaming, just sitting. Hollow. She called her mother. No sentences, no explanation. Just a broken sound. 10 minutes later, Eleanor and her father arrived, using the emergency key they had kept since Olivia first moved out. Eleanor knelt beside her daughter. "Tell me what happened, sweetheart." Between sobs, Olivia told them everything. Her father, Richard, paced in the living room, clutching his chest. "I'll kill him. And her too." "Richard, your blood pressure?" Eleanor whispered, though her own face had turned pale with fury. The next day, Olivia returned the engagement ring. She didn't see Nathan left it with the concierge. When she came home, she discovered Sophie had already moved in most of her belongings. Family photos with Sophie in new frames, old decorations of Olivia's shoved aside. Soon after, Nathan sent an email titled "Division of Remaining Property." In it, he wrote, he had asked Sophie to help categorize your remaining items. The tone was crisp. Clinical. Through mutual friends, Olivia learned the full scope of the betrayal. They had met in secret whenever she traveled. Sophie had pursued Nathan from the beginning, creating excuses to be alone with him. A few friends admitted they'd noticed something strange, but didn't want to get involved. Their silence stung almost more than the betrayal itself. In the following weeks, Eleanor became Olivia's lifeline. She brought meals, stayed overnight, and listened without trying to fix things. When Olivia woke crying from nightmares, her mother would simply take her hand. That was enough. One evening during a tense family dinner, Eleanor had arranged Olivia refused to pass Sophie the salt. Sophie snapped. "You always got everything first, the job, the apartment, the friends. For once, I got something before you." "He wasn't a prize," Olivia said, her voice trembling. "He was someone I loved and trusted." It was the last dinner the family spent together in full. Her father's heart medication needed adjustment. Her mother aged visibly in just weeks. 6 months after Olivia ended her shattered engagement, Boston no longer felt like home. Every street corner, every cafe, every shopping plaza was haunted by memories. The shadows of Nathan and Sophie lingered like ghosts, making each day in the city more exhausting than the last. When her company announced an opening for a regional marketing director at their Chicago branch, Olivia applied almost immediately. No long deliberation, no second opinions, she just knew she had to go. 2 weeks later, the official offer arrived in her inbox. Olivia began boxing up her old life. Her mother quietly helped wrap each picture frame, each keepsake. "Are you sad?" Olivia asked as they packed her grandmother's embroidered scarf. "Of course," Eleanor replied, voice soft. "But I'd be sadder if you stayed here and kept hurting." Chicago greeted Olivia with an autumn chill that cut straight through her coat. Her temporary studio apartment felt small, sterile, and unfamiliar. She worked long hours, often eating dinner at her desk, just to avoid coming home to silence. Though she tried to hide the scars, people sensed a blend of strength and sorrow in her demeanor. One afternoon during an internal team event, she met Madison, the company's HR director, who would become her first real friend in Chicago. Madison was sharp, warm, and perceptive. After just a few casual conversations, she invited Olivia to join her weekend book club. At a tech industry conference in San Francisco, Olivia met Zachary Foster, a venture investor newly relocated from Seattle to Chicago. Unlike Nathan, Zachary was calm and genuine. During a dinner with prospective clients, they sat next to each other, engaging in a spirited discussion about emerging trends in digital communication. The next morning, Olivia received an email from Zachary. "If you're free before this afternoon's panel, want to continue our chat with a proper coffee this time." At first she hesitated, but eventually she said yes. That coffee meeting lasted nearly 2 hours, not because of business talk, but because they genuinely wanted to know each other. Zachary spoke with a quiet attentiveness Olivia had never experienced before. He didn't try to impress her, didn't boast, he was simply fully present. In the following days, they stayed in touch professionally. Zachary referred new clients to Olivia, and she introduced him to key contacts in the Chicago network. Madison began to notice. "Colleagues don't text that much," she teased. Olivia laughed, but something inside her shifted. A few weeks later, Zachary invited her to dinner, this time not for business. Olivia nearly declined. When she accepted, she spent over an hour getting ready and almost canceled at the last minute. The fear of being hurt again still hid in every careful gesture. The evening started smoothly, but when they began discussing their favorite books, Olivia unexpectedly had a panic attack. Her hands trembled, breath uneven, tears welling. But instead of being alarmed or annoyed, Zachary quietly moved to sit beside her and said, "It's okay. We don't have to talk. Just breathe." The next morning, a bouquet of flowers arrived on Olivia's desk. Tucked inside was a note. No expectations, no pressure, just hoping you're feeling better. Zachary, that was a turning point. That evening, Olivia called him and for the first time shared the full story of Nathan and Sophie. Zachary didn't interrupt, didn't probe, he just listened. Then he shared his own, a wife who left him for his co-founder, the double loss of love and business in a single year. From that moment on, they built everything on truth. No rush, no fantasy. Zachary asked for nothing. Olivia promised nothing. They simply stayed kindly, honestly, side by side. That morning, Boston's sky hung heavy and gray, as if even the weather was mourning her mother. Olivia stood still in her childhood bedroom, where high school photos still clung to the walls, adjusting the collar of her simple black dress with trembling fingers. Today was Eleanor's funeral, the woman who once held her through sleepless nights and whispered, "Forgiveness isn't about them deserving it. It's about you deserving peace." Zachary entered dressed in a dark suit, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'm here," he said, his reflection in the mirror calm and steady. They descended the stairs together. Her father, Richard, sat frozen before a cup of untouched coffee. The loss of his wife had drained something vital from him. Once a tall, upright man, now his shoulders curved under the weight of grief. A black car drove them to the funeral home. Relatives, longtime neighbors, and family friends arrived one by one. Olivia clutched her father's hand, nodding to each guest, though her mind was bracing for what would be the hardest part, the arrival of Sophie and Nathan. And then they came. The room collectively stiffened as the doors opened. Sophie entered in a sleek black designer dress, her hair elegantly tied back, diamond earrings catching the light. Nathan followed, his hand on her lower back. On Sophie's left hand gleamed the same engagement ring that once belonged to Olivia. Olivia didn't turn around. Her gaze remained fixed on the framed photo of her mother's smiling face. That image grounded her, kept her from drowning in the flood of emotion rising in her chest. Then Sophie stood before her. "It's been a long time," she said softly, her tone unreadable. Olivia simply nodded. Nathan offered a stiff nod of his own, eyes betraying unease. Zachary, having just returned from a conversation with the funeral director, stepped up beside Olivia. "Zachary, come meet my sister," Olivia said evenly, her voice startlingly calm. When Nathan saw him, the color drained from his face. "Foster," he muttered, disbelief flickering in his eyes. Reynolds. Zachary responded smoothly, polite but icy. The atmosphere turned heavy after the unexpected encounter between Nathan and Zachary. Handshakes were stiff, eye contact fleeting, and the polite words exchanged felt more like staged dialogue than genuine interaction. Nathan forced a smile, but his movements were mechanical, like a man acting in a role that no longer fit him. "We should reconnect, maybe discuss some collaboration opportunities," he offered, attempting professional cordiality. Zachary gave a measured nod. "You can contact my assistant if it's necessary," he replied calmly, not hostile, but clearly not inviting. The service began. Olivia sat beside her father with Zachary on her other side. She listened to each tribute, each tearful farewell. Then Sophie stepped up to speak, and the room hushed. Her voice trembled. Mom always saw the best in people, even in the darkest moments. But a few sentences in her tears overwhelmed her. She choked on her words. Olivia looked up. And in that moment, she no longer saw a betrayer, but a daughter grieving the same mother. She rose quietly, stepped forward, and placed a gentle hand on Sophie's back. "It's okay," she whispered. "Say what you want. Or say nothing." Sophie nodded, composing herself, and managed to finish with a childhood story that made the room softly laugh through tears. After the service, the family gathered at their home. Nathan lingered uncomfortably, drinking more than he should. His conversations were fragmented. Meanwhile, Zachary was surrounded by several of Nathan's former business acquaintances, people whose attention had clearly shifted. Olivia didn't need revenge. Reality was speaking for itself. As the crowd dwindled and only close family remained, Sophie approached Olivia. "Thank you for earlier," she murmured, eyes red and tired. Olivia didn't say you're welcome. She simply nodded. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a door slightly open. The afternoon after the funeral, Olivia remained alone at her childhood home while Zachary flew back to Chicago for a board meeting. Her father had gone to visit his brother in the suburbs, leaving Olivia quiet space to sort through her mother's belongings. Eleanor's bedroom still held the faint scent of perfume. Silk scarves were folded neatly. Her reading chair remained untouched, as though she might return at any moment. In the nightstand drawer, Olivia found an old leather-bound journal. It was her mother's diary. The handwriting flowed gently across pages spanning over a decade, documenting Fear's hopes and the quiet devotion she held for her two daughters. A final entry written just weeks before her passing read, "What I regret most is not my illness, but the distance between my girls. I have always believed that pain fades, and that with enough courage, one can walk through even the deepest wounds. I hope that one day Olivia can look at Sophie not as a scar, but as a sister." Olivia held the journal tightly. She had rebuilt her life with resilience, but deep within her a fracture remained. She had never forgiven. She had only walked away. The doorbell pulled her back to the present. Through the glass, she saw Sophie standing alone. No Nathan, no expensive dress, just a woman in a dark sweater holding a small paper bag. "I won't stay long," Sophie said as she stepped inside. "I just wanted to give you this." Inside the bag was a small wooden box. Olivia opened it. Inside lay the old engagement ring, the one that had once been hers. "I can't keep it anymore," Sophie said. "It was never truly mine." The sisters sat in the kitchen once warm with their mother's voice. Now it was quiet enough to hear the spoon clink against the edge of the teacup. Olivia looked at Sophie, not the competitive girl from memory, but a woman facing the collapse of everything she once chose. "I read Mom's journal," Sophie whispered. "The final lines? I haven't been able to sleep since." Olivia didn't reply. She hadn't slept much either. "I know," Sophie continued, voice trembling. "I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know, I've been miserable. My marriage isn't happy. Nathan isn't the man you once loved. I gave you up for something that turned out to be hollow." Olivia set her cup down. "Why are you here today?" "Because I want to end something that's gone on too long," Sophie said, her eyes honest. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. But if I ever looked up to you, and I did, I want to prove I can rise from my mistakes." There was a long silence. Then Olivia spoke barely above a whisper. "I used to hate you." Sophie nodded. "I know." But now Olivia continued, "I don't want to carry that hate anymore. Not because you deserve to be forgiven, but because I deserve to be free of it." Sophie cried not because she was forgiven, but because she had finally been seen as a person. Before leaving, she held Olivia's hand tightly. "I won't come back unless you ask me to, but if someday you want to talk not out of duty but as sisters, I'll be here." The door closed behind her. Olivia stood in the old kitchen. She didn't feel light. She didn't feel like the pain had vanished. But she knew she had made the most important choice of all to let go.